everyone, welcome back to Just Autism. Thank you for joining me for intro part 2. And where we left off with the last video blog was Danny was just about to be tested for autism, and I had made mention that there was a specific reason why we had to speed up the autism testing. Now, I don't know about your area, but in our specific area there are very limited daycares. Basically there's almost zero, and there's a select few that can handle special needs children and are adaptable for them, but they have specific requirements that in essence cost a lot of money. So with that being said, finding daycare for our kids is next to impossible. So when Easter Seals had recommended to us a early education center that literally was right around the corner from our house, that specialized in working with kids with delays at that point, we jumped right on it. It was a feeder school in our school district, which meant that if Danny continued on with the program, he could feed into our local school and already be basically adapted to what school life would be like, and they would know him and they could work with him and he would have the assistance that he needed. With that being said, the program ran for half days and they had an on-site daycare that was fed to from the school, which was great for us because the staff there knew kids that had delays. They knew how to work with those kids, and we actually had a good rapport with quite a few of the staff members there who took a shine to Danny and knew how to work with him and how to calm him down and calm his anxiety down and just make it an easier transition in the day for him. Now, needless to say, the school's not always opened and they were closed for certain times, you know, for professional development days and so forth, but the daycare was always open, so we had the option of morning and afternoon daycare, which was great. At one point in time, the on-site manager was changed out to a new person, and this person that came on board was currently in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy and seemed like a good person at first. However, on one particular day, I went to drop the kids off in the morning before I went to work, and Danny was just having just a very, very rough morning and kind of being a little more clingy that morning, which was fine. Typically when we got there, the staff would come up, they would interact with him, they would get his breakfast set up, they would get a game or a toy that he liked, and they would just start playing and just kind of taking his mind off the fact that mommy's going to leave. And they were great and we loved it. However, I walk in and they're no longer there. Okay, no big deal, right? So drop the kids off. Danny had a little bit of a challenge that morning. Kenneth, his sister, took right to him. She escorted him to the carpet. They began playing. Mom's able to sneak out the door. No corpse about it. This goes on for about a week. Still noticing that the normal morning staff was not there. But however, one of the girls that was in the morning was there in the afternoon. So I thought, okay, maybe there was a shift change, something happened. Okay, it is what it is, right? At least somebody's there that I know and I trust. Following week, I go in, another day where he was going to be going in the morning, and I go to drop him off, and another rough morning, he's being very clingy again, and Kenna goes in and she begins her day and she's starting to play with her little friends that were there, and Danny just did not want to let go. And I said, okay, Bob. So I go over and I place him on the carpet and I sit with him for a few minutes to kind of get him to calm down, and I asked Kenneth, can you go find a few toys that Danny likes? And she brought a few trucks over and they started playing. And I get up and I just go to put his bag away, get his stuff ready for his breakfast, and just let the teacher know that I'm going to head out. With that, the teacher is standing right next to the carpet on the tile floor. And I noticed that she's watching over them a little bit and she's talking to the other aide that's in the room. At this point, there's only 2 of them. And Danny starts to see that I'm getting ready to leave and starts to have a mini meltdown and crying, just like what a little kid's going to do. However, with Danny's meltdowns, he has a tendency of trying to throw himself backwards, and when he did, he hit the tile floor. And in the midst of turning to look at him, I see him go back and I hear the crack of his head on the floor. And there are the two teachers. And there's the main director and the main manager. And she just turns and walks away from him as he's screaming and crying. The crack was so bad that the aide actually gasped and lunged. And the teacher and the director just basically walked away. I ran towards my child, scooped him up, not even thinking I should be checking his head first. But mother's instinct, scooped him up and started just cuddling him and soothing him and trying to get him to calm down and everything. And the director actually had the audacity to say to me, if you would just leave, he would be fine. And I lost it. And I said to her, how dare you? I said, you literally turned and watched this child smack his head on the ground, on the tile floor, to the point that your aide gasped, and you walked away. You didn't even have the instinct to pick the child up to see if they were okay. And you're going to be a mother? Like, you're pregnant right now and you have no maternal instinct on this matter. I was just flabbergasted. I had no words. The only thing I could do at that point was pick my son up, pick my daughter up, and leave. And I did. And I remember walking out of that room and walking out of that building to my car and just crying. And I'm putting the kids in their seats and I'm buckling them in and I am in tears. And I get into the car and I'm shaking. And I call my husband and I'm just like, you're never going to believe what just took place. With that, my husband springs into action like he does. He calls the main director of the program and asked who this person was, why were they now there, where was the morning staff, and what was going on, and it proceeds to explain to this person what just took place. Needless to say, I was no longer comfortable taking my children to that center if that person was going to remain overseeing it. And we were then informed later by some of the other staff members that we had kind of formed a bond with that the morning crew was no longer there because of this woman, and a few of them had asked to be transferred out to another center or had left and or transferred to the afternoon shift like our one girl was. With that, we were on a new path to find another daycare because I was just no longer comfortable sending the kids there because now I was worried, like, if that happened, what else is happening when I'm not around? So we embark on an interview process, interviewing daycares, asking them, can you handle a child with delays? And here's what Danny's delays are. He's nonverbal, he can't communicate, he has meltdowns, and he doesn't know how to control certain things, and is that okay? And this one place that I will not name assured us, yes, they could, that they had other special needs students and children at the center, and that they were more than capable of handling it. I said, oh, this is perfect. We finally found a place that's going to possibly work. From the get-go, we offered all of Danny's paperwork at the very beginning. On our very first interview, we said, listen, we've come with copies. Would you like them for your files to review before you say yes to this? We will gladly give you all the information. We have all the doctor's reports and all the therapist reports as to what's going on, what things we have in place that help him. And they refused it and said no, that was not necessary. If they needed it down the line, that they would ask for it. Anyway, fast forward, we're into the new daycare a couple of weeks, and suddenly we start to see some red flags. Leave early from work one day to go pick up the kids, and I'm all excited because I wanted to see them. I usually wasn't the one that got to pick them up, but I wanted to see them in action. And I go to their room and I see my son in a corner by himself, just playing with two little cars while all the kids are at a table playing. Now, prior to this, I've had calls from the teacher stating that Danny had run off the playground. And by running off the playground, they mean went to the playground unit next to the unit that they were allowed to play on. This particular daycare 3 separate playground units right next to each other, no fencing in between them or any type of segregation, but that was specific for certain age ranges. My son, being a 2.5, 3-year-old at the time, wanted to explore it in his first couple weeks, and the teacher called me and said, well, he's not listening, he continues to run to the other units, and he's not supposed to be there, they're supposed to stay in the middle one. I said, okay. I said, just, it's going to take him a while to learn your routine, just, walk him back, let him know you have to stay here, and he'll kindly start to pick up on it, after a while. It is going to take him a while to adjust. Okay, that's fine. So then I get there and I see him kind of isolated, and I'm like, okay, maybe he just didn't want to partake. Then my husband goes on another day and same thing, and this time he's in the back of the classroom where there's like almost no lighting back there, on a carpet, just kind of playing with some cars and everything else. And we also noticed at this time, we had introduced the PEC system to Danny at his early education center. They had started to utilize that to try to get him to communicate because he was not talking. And we were working with him at home, and he had started actually kind of picking up on it a little bit and utilizing it. So he had a little book that kind of was on a strap, went across his body, that he could carry with him to take the pictures out when he needed them to show whomever. And we told the teacher, this is how this works, this is what he's going to do, this is what you can do. And every day we picked him up, and the book is in his cubby outside the classroom. So you've taken away my child's communication, the only thing that he has at that point. And when I asked the teacher the next time I saw it in the cubby, I asked her, I said, why is his PECS book in the cubby? Well, I just don't understand how that works. It's a picture system. I've explained it to you. I wrote out instructions. I put them in the book. I put them in his backpack. What more do you want me to do? And according to your director, you are all trained in this type of stuff, so you should have some kind of clue. Anyway, let's fast forward a couple more weeks into this. I get off work early again, go to pick up the kids, excited. It was a Friday. I was getting off work early, going to go see the babies in the rooms playing, and as I enter the building, the director of the program comes out and cuts me off from walking down the hallway and says, oh, I'm glad you're here. I needed to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, and I'm continuing to walk down the hallway as she's trying to stop me. And I said, okay, I'm going. She's like, well, okay, well, if you're going down to the room, I'll go anyway. There's a problem. Okay, well, what's the problem? Well, Danny just picked up a toy and just smashed another child in the face with it, and the child's nose bleeding, and we can't get it to stop, so they may have to go to the emergency room. Okay, so let's hurry down a little bit further. I get down to the room, the teacher's there with the other child and is holding, the towels on the nose. And by the time we get there, the teacher says it's starting to slow down and stop. They're okay. And the poor child is crying and just covered in blood. And my heart is breaking because I'm like, oh my God, my child did this to another child. What am I going to do? And I go in and I grab Danny, and I'm standing there, and I said to the director and the teacher, I said, I'm so sorry. He's never done anything like this. I don't understand. If the parents want to talk, I will more than glad, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with them. It's not a problem. But please express how sorry I am and let them know. We want to know how he's doing. So the next morning, or I should say the following morning when we were there, the following week, escort the kids down to the room, and I get to talk to the teacher that was there that night, or that afternoon, I should say. And I had asked her, I said, after we left, how was the student? Were they okay? How were the parents? Did they need to talk? Is he, do you know any updates? Do you know, did it stop? Did they have to go to the ER? Can we offer to pay the ER bill for them or their copay? And she's just kind of looking at me, kind of like I have 5 heads. And she says, what are you talking about? And I said, the director, when we were walking down, was telling me that, Danny smashed a toy in this child's face and caused him to have a nosebleed and that this is what happened. And she goes, no. And I said, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I said, I'm really confused. I said, what do you mean, no? And she's like, Danny never hit him with a toy. She said, Danny was playing with a toy. She said the child had been running around the room like a crazy person, and when they came around the corner, Danny was playing with the toy and had the toy in the air like an airplane, and they collided. She said the child fell on the toy. She said Danny didn't smack him with it. And I was just like, are you serious? And she said, yeah. And I said, is that written down anywhere? Something just told me to ask that question. For some reason, just ask the question. And she said, yeah, it's on the accident report, and it's on, because it happened alongside with Danny, and Danny fell and hit his back. We had to write up the accident report. And I said, can I have a copy of that right now, if you don't mind? And she said, absolutely. So she ran to get the report and made a copy for me, and I took it. I marched straight up to that director's office and was like, please explain to me why you told me my child bashed another child in the face with a toy, and the teacher is reporting something different. Oh, well, I just must have misheard what had happened. You accused my little 3-year-old of hurting somebody. I went home that night and I told my husband, be prepared. Something's just not right. And problems still continued on. They still kept complaining about Danny's lack of communication. And timely as they are, they waited till we were on vacation to call us to tell us that they were officially suspending Danny from the school until we could accommodate the school with a one-on-one for them. And that started a whole battle. So I now was left with no daycare, and contacted Danny's teachers and his guidance counselor at the early education center and let them know what was happening. And they said, we're going to get his testing bumped up, because if he's testing and he shows that he is autistic, then there's going to be a bigger problem. Needless to say that we had to go through a legal battle with the daycare, and it ended up that we filed many grievances with them, and unfortunately there's a lot of legal jargon that gets them out of taking any sort of, I don't want to say blame, but any type of action or recognizing that they had done any wrong. Sorry, I'm at a loss of words right now, because I get very emotional when I think of that time, because it was just so heartbreaking. And we were just at a point where we didn't know what to do anymore. And I remember my husband saying they want to test him for autism, and at this point my husband really had not come to the final resting spot of that he was going to be autistic. Right now he was just delayed, so there was always hope and always a possibility, but autism was kind of finite for him, and that hit him hard. And needless to say, we went through all the evaluations, and obviously he was diagnosed autistic, and then we went through the medical evaluations, and that solidified it. But that was a process, and it was an emotional one to go through all of that and to have that happen. And luckily in that process, and in a way, I have to be thankful that we were forced to do it and we had to go through that, because as a heaven sent, we found Danny's Autism Center, and we found a whole new family, and we found people that we love and adore, and that Danny loves and that adore him, and just they opened up his world and ours. And if it wasn't for them and his teachers at his early education center, I don't think we'd be as far along as we are right now. And they mean the world to us, and we can never ever repay them enough. And right now, that's where we're at. That was almost 5 years ago, and we've slowly have gone through further and further processes and learned more. But that was the start of our journey. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on about all of that. But I have so much more to tell you and so much more to share, and I'm hoping you'll come back and you'll continue down this little mini adventure that I am I'm going on right now. And thanks again for listening and allowing me to tell my story. If you haven't had a moment to subscribe to my channel, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again. Take care. See you soon.